So thank you very much for being here and sharing your success stories with our audience. We want to know something about your childhood, family background, and then education, and also what kind of person you are.
First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I answer your question, I would like to take a few seconds just to make a couple of courtesy calls. At the outset, I would like to thank you, Didar Sahib, and your team for organizing this event. ACE and I are honored to be here today. Thank you for inviting us. Personally, I'm humbled. Secondly, on behalf of ACE, I would like to say that it's a privilege to be here today. I believe there are more worthy candidates to be sitting in this chair, but thank you again for considering ACE and myself. I am a representative of ACE today here, and again, my big thank you to my team. Some of them are sitting here, so thank you for doing all the hard work and putting me in the hot seat. And last but not least, I would like to thank all of you, the participants. And I've seen today some friends that I haven't seen in years. I will not mention names, but they know who they are. Thank you for coming. Again, thank you for honoring me. And I hope that what I will share today will not disappoint you, and hopefully you will leave with lessons learned that so far I have learned from my experience. So once again, thank you very much. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I'm truly humbled to be sitting here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
My childhood. I was born in Kabul in 1980, so you now can tell how old I am. I was a year old when my family ended up migrating to Pakistan because of what was happening in Afghanistan. I lived about 14 years in Peshawar as a refugee. Did most of my schooling in Pakistan. Then I got an opportunity to go to Egypt, finish my school there, did a couple of semesters of my college there, came back to Peshawar, finished my college, and then I went to and got an opportunity to go and do my master's in London. I was in London for about 2 years. And then I returned to Afghanistan in 2003, and since then I have been in Afghanistan. My childhood memories, I mean, what I can recall is mainly waiting to return back to Afghanistan because our families kept telling us, you know, sooner or later we're going to go back to Afghanistan, today, tomorrow, and 14 years, and then of course college started. But it was a humble life, and I'm very thankful for it. Learned a lot from it. Nothing to complain, but it's good to be back in our country and be here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, one thing I know, I want to ask about your hobbies and interests. One thing I know that you are not interested, your hobby is not photography. That I could find it out. But tell us about some of your hobbies and your interest, like a normal person, not like a businessman or not like a entrepreneur.
Well, my hobbies, I mean, with time they change as we grow. Our hobbies change. Since childhood, was very interested in reading books. Was very active in school sports teams, even in college and university. I love playing volleyball. We still have a small volleyball court in our office. Once in a while we get a chance to play. I play table tennis, badminton once in a while. But mainly, aside from business, I mean, I like to read. I love traveling. Whenever I get a chance that I can travel to a new place, I utilize that chance because I think, from my personal experience, I think you learn a lot from your experience of traveling to other places and, you know, experiencing those cultures. From a hobby and it might be shocking to some of us, but I also like cooking once in a while.
So, how do you rate this food of Safi Landmark today?
To be honest, I did not get the chance to eat it. So I'm not in a position to comment, but I'm sure it's very good.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, thank you very much. We have collected some photos. So we want to see that. It's not a lot. Some of my colleagues may have experience from our very first event that we have some good clips from Farshid. But this time we have some small, so we talked about your childhood. Can you talk about this photo?
Yes, this photo is of course in Pakistan. That's I mean, most probably I'm 6, 7 years old.
The first photo, please.
And of course, obviously, the person sitting beside me is my father, a very young man at that time. And this is Pakistan.
Okay. Next one.
A very good friend of mine sitting in the middle. My younger brother is on the left, and I'm on the right.
Okay. Very good. So next, this is graduation.
That's my graduation, my MBA graduation in London. Yes. A very hot day. That's my son, my oldest son, Zaid. We went to Malaysia. It was a very hot day, and my first time I tried coconut water.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now coming to your professional life. So we want you to talk about your professional life. You have been through a journey that most of us, especially your friends, knows that. But still, we want all the audience to know about your professional career when after college, how you started and how it moved to before ACE.
I mean, my official career, of course, started in September of 2003. And before I go into details of it, even when I was a student in Pakistan, after class hours, we used to go and work and play just to have to learn and also have a side income. So I used to work in an NGO in Peshawar. When I went to London as a student, of course, you needed to work to have an extra income to sustain yourself. But those were just to sustain yourself. My professional career started in 2003 in September. When I came back, when I finished my MBA, I joined AISA, the Afghanistan Investment Support Agency. I worked with AISA for about 3 years. And then after 3 years, I moved to Export Promotion Agency of Afghanistan. I was there for another 2 years, 2.5 years. From there, I moved on to Harakat, which is the Afghanistan Investment Climate Facility. I was there for another 2.5 years. Then I will move to AEG. I was there for another 2 years. And now, for the past 3 years, I'm busy with Afghanistan Center for Excellence. So I started with serving the government. I went to the non-governmental sector, which is the NGO. Then I came to private sector, and then started our own thing, which is now ACE. So I've over 11 years of career with the private sector, with the government, and the NGO sector in Afghanistan.
Okay, that's good. Again, we have some photos because during your tenure, you had some very dramatic successes that you brought it to Afghanistan. We want to also see some of those photos as well. And you please talk about
this
them.
Picture, as you can see, a very young version of me. This is 12 years ago. The person standing beside me is Qazimiseb, Shahid Qazimiseb. He was the Minister of Commerce at that time, and he requested me to translate his speech at that time. So that's why I'm standing beside him. But this is 12 years ago.
12.
A very special night, not for me, but for Afghanistan and for the Export Promotion Agency. On this night, this is in Holland. The Export Promotion Agency of Afghanistan was awarded with the best trade promotion organization from a least developed country for the first time in the history of Afghanistan. Another memorable night, this is Domotex in Germany, exhibiting Afghan carpets. On this night, I believe this is 2008, a carpet from Afghanistan won the best modern design carpet for the first time in Domotex. Again, and I would like to say that I'm not taking the credit. It was a team effort, but all the credit, you know, it was for Afghanistan. But a beautiful night for us because we were the part of the process. So those pictures, thank you for sharing them.
Thank you, thank you. So it's part of our life as well.
Thank you.
So now one question which is really problematic, also something that I want to know, in that is that having such a high level of career in the government, working with such great, working with such great institutions and being on top of that, what makes a person like Mr. Fatimie to transition to the business world? So I'm curious to know. Obviously, our audience will also be curious to know.
Well, from the beginning, the day I came to I came back to Afghanistan, the idea was to serve in the Afghanistan in whatever capacity that was. But then down the road, the idea was to start something of our own. But at that time, I think serving the government was a priority, and I ended up working with a great institution like AISA. I feel honored to be to have worked with AISA. Throughout the 11 years, I got to meet some amazing individuals. Again, some of them are sitting here. I don't want to mention names, and that's because of that career. I would have not made those connections and those networks if I did not go through that process. But from the beginning, I had a plan that I want to work in the government, get to know the government, then work in the non-governmental sector, and then work in the private sector, so I get to know how everything operates. And that was the idea behind it. Some things went according to the plan, some didn't, but overall, the overall experience was a humbling experience and learned a lot. I really enjoyed serving the government of Afghanistan and working in some great institutions. And I have to also give credit to some great mentors I have worked with, some great leaders I've worked with, and I've learned a lot from them. And we'll talk about it, why it's important to have mentors. And at a young age, fresh from university, to get to work with international community, to work with people who are getting the country to move and getting the country back on its feet was an immense experience for me. So it was, if it was an accident or coincidence, but it was the best thing that could happen to me as my professional career. So no regrets. I enjoyed every single minute of it. I loved it. It might have taken a bit, maybe I wanted to be in the private sector a bit. It took longer for me to come into the private sector, but I think it was meant to be. But we're very happy with the career, and I hope the people that I got to serve and work with, I hope they're happy with me. That's the most important.
That's good. So one question that I ask it for almost from all of our speakers, and I have asked it from Farshid as well. From the family background, was entrepreneurship in the blood, or it came just from your starting from your work?
No, entrepreneurship or business is not in my blood and not in our family line of business. Employment and serving in the government or non-governmental sector. I think for me it was a natural transition after the experiences. A time comes in your life when you want to be a bit more independent and you want to do something different. And again, throughout these 11 years, one thing I've learned, and maybe we can discuss it maybe in detail, is it gave us the opportunity, or at least to me, to keep reinventing ourselves. You know, learn and then reinvent ourselves, learn and reinvent ourselves. And I think the transition is not, you know, business line or entrepreneurship is not a family background.
Yeah, so why I ask this question? Because we are living in a country where people believe that business comes only by tradition. So if your grandfather is a businessman, then the father becomes the businessman, then you are becoming the businessman. But we have seen, like your example, like Farshid's example, like Sandra Kakar's experience, that no, you can start it from anywhere. You can be the businessman grandfather of your children. So this is something that we want to insist on for our audience and especially for the youth, that it's not that always you should come from a family of businessmen. You can just start your business. Okay, so now let's talk about this, that why entrepreneurship, especially in this point of time, is some needed for Afghanistan. Is it needed or not needed? So we want to discuss about that. Why entrepreneurship? Why in Afghanistan? And who can be entrepreneur? Who cannot be?
Well, anybody can be an entrepreneur. I mean, entrepreneurship is about seeing an opportunity, you know, having the willingness to take the risk and then turning that opportunity into a possibility or reality. The key factor for an entrepreneur is that risk factor, willing to take that risk. Some people are afraid of that risk because they're comfortable in that comfort zone. They don't want to push themselves. You know, if you're willing to take the risk, you're an entrepreneur by nature. When it comes to Afghanistan, I think if Afghanistan has to stand on its feet, it's going to be through private sector development. And if it's going to stand on its feet, it's by creating jobs. And we can create only jobs by creating businesses, by creating small, medium enterprises, so we can get people to busy, so they can have a decent means of living within Afghanistan, so they don't consider leaving Afghanistan. And I think the youth are the key. You know, the capital, the human capital, is the must for Afghanistan to stand on its feet. So leaving is not an option. Entrepreneurship is the way forward. Government can provide the platform, government can provide the guidelines, but it cannot create jobs, the jobs that are needed to sustain Afghanistan's economy. And that requires small, medium enterprises to stand on its feet. There will be ones that will succeed, there ones will be fail, but that's part of the process. But right now, Afghanistan needs its youth and its population, its patriots to be more involved and to make sure that the investment that Afghanistan has made in us, you know, our education, or providing the platform that we are here today, we need to return the investment on it. And it's now. It's not tomorrow. It's not after tomorrow. It's now, and we have to return that investment. Afghanistan made an investment in us, and any businessman will tell you there's a return on investment. And that Afghanistan needs that return on investment today, not tomorrow. So it's our responsibility as Afghans to the future generation of Afghanistan that we make that investment today and return that investment today.
Well, we want to learn more. Okay, so definitely there are challenges, especially when you enter in this world. You will see too many of the challenges. We want you to talk about those challenges and how you coped with those challenges. We want our audience to know that such challenges comes and how your experience, from your experience, how they can solve it.
I mean, there are environmental challenges and there are personal challenges that you face as a person entering this field. No doubt that the situation is not ideal on the ground, but Afghanistan offers plenty of opportunities for all of us to make a decent living in Afghanistan. Plenty of opportunities. It's for us to seize those opportunities and make the investment. And again, when I talk about investment, it doesn't mean financial investment. The investment of time and effort you need. Once you invest your time and effort, then the rest will follow, inshallah. I mean, personally, my personal challenges were more than the environment, because to a certain extent I knew the environment I had worked in the system. I knew, I had a good network. My personal challenges were more to push myself to be able to take that risk. I'm usually a very risk-averse person. I like my comfort zone, which is not a good thing as an entrepreneur. But I had to push myself to take the risk and take that leap that we're going to start something, and it hopefully will operate, and it will become successful. Because when you go on your own, then there's no safety net. And you need to then create that safety net for us. And for me to sit here and take the credit, it's not going to be fair. For me, the safety net came from the team. I have, alhamdulillah, an amazing team that I work with. I have a pleasure to be part of that team. And they helped us and ACE to overcome those challenges. The personal challenges, as I said, it's your pushing yourself, making sure that a bad day does not change a good day for you, or a bad situation does not undermine what you're trying to do, and think positively and have a positive attitude. Those were the personal, I think, factors that were very challenging. But from the environment perspective, once you know the system, once you establish yourself, it's relatively easy to operate in Afghanistan. Of course, you need to know the rules and regulations and make sure you're within those rules and regulation. I'm not focusing on the security perspective, because that's something that is always a concern. But I think from a business perspective, I think the environment is okay enough for anybody to start a business in Afghanistan. But numerous challenges, and people, I'm sure we all have our own challenges, but the challenge part was the most enjoyable part, because every challenge you overcame, you got a step closer to that goal of yours. So as I said, again, I have an amazing team that has helped me overcome personal and some of our professional challenges. So the credit goes to them, and again, a big thank you to them.
What personality traits should we can see in entrepreneurship? So a kind of test that our audience think that can they be an entrepreneur or not?
Every single individual brings a certain flavor to entrepreneurship, because we talk about a personal trait, but there are traits across the board that you need to be an entrepreneur. And in some contexts, Afghanistan requires an extra layer of traits, because you're dealing in a different environment. I think the most important is patience. You need to be very patient and make sure you deal with the situations and the circumstances with a big heart, and make sure you're patient, and you don't, because if you're not patient, you'll make impulse decisions, and those impulse decisions will have consequences that you might not like. So if you patient, and as they say, sleep over your decisions, and consult your team, I think that's the best thing you can do as an entrepreneur, to be patient, because entrepreneurship requires patience, especially when you have a bad day, or the company is facing some sort of a challenge or challenges. It requires patience, and that patience, especially in Afghanistan, you need more of it, because the environment is not as easy as other countries. In regards to the personal traits, what I think an entrepreneur should have also is the fact that you need to be able to trust people around you. The team you're going to work with, you need to trust them. If you can't trust your team, then you have a problem. Unless you trust your team, then you cannot bring together the team to move forward. You can, as an individual, you can have an idea, but it's going to be the team that is going to implement that idea. As a single person, you will never be able to implement an idea, or establish a company and then operate the company and run the company and make it successful. It's a team that makes that possible. So it's very, very important that you can trust your team and you have that willingness to be able to grant them that, so they can trust you and you can create a bond and trust them. And I think that's very, very important. Also, as an entrepreneur, especially in Afghanistan, because we usually have good days and bad days, having a good smile can solve a lot of problems. We live in an environment with security, concerns, and people, come to your office with difficult circumstances. So if you have an environment where people are happy and they can smile and forget sometimes what is happening outside, I think it can really help move your team forward. So a smile can go a long way. If you can create an environment within the team, within the company, that people can be happy and smile and have a good time, I think very important. As an entrepreneur or as a human being, we usually like to talk a lot, because we like to talk, we would like people to listen. But I think as an entrepreneur, it has to be the other way around, In order to make sure you seize opportunities, you have to be a very active listener. You need to know what is happening in your surrounding, who's doing what initiatives are coming along. Is there anything for you to be able to seize those opportunities? So I say listen, 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 and then talk. Listen, 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 and then talk. So be an active listener, meaning that not just put a ear, but be an active listener to understand what is happening, be aware of your surrounding. And I think in the context, again, of Afghanistan, it's very important that you listen to people so they can explain their idea or, whatever they have. For you to, also, and that also brings the factor of respect. When you listen to somebody, you're respecting that person. That's when you give somebody your time, that's the biggest thing you can do, and that's the biggest sign of respect. So be an active listener as much as possible. As an entrepreneur, don't chase the money. We usually chase the money, financials. No, it's important that you keep an eye on your financials. Make sure that you can sustain yourself, but try to focus on creating something great or building something great. Focus on that part of it more, and then don't chase the money. If you have a good idea, and if you think you can sell the idea and you have customers for it, focus on building that idea and making it great instead of chasing the money. Because when you chase money, money runs from you. So don't chase the money. Focus more on building what the idea you have, building the company you're planning to do, or whatever enterprise you're planning to do. So focus more on building the enterprise than mainly running after the financial means of it. And as an individual, we need to also know our shortcomings. We're not perfect as human beings. And as entrepreneurs, regardless of how many years of experience, we are still, will need people to help us grow an idea. So never have this attitude that I'm an expert in all fields. I can do finance, I can do marketing, I can do branding. No, you will need help. And to recognize that fact is very important. You need to recognize the fact that you will need people to help you. And once you recognize it, then make sure you appreciate it. So you don't take that help or support for granted. And remember that we will never be expert in all fields, and that's why we need to build a team, and we are part of that team. And we bring a certain level of skills, they bring certain level of skill, and collectively that skill is going to move forward the company. Having a good judgment, especially in Afghanistan, because there's a lot of information that runs on years. So, there are a lot of rumors that you hear in Afghanistan. So having a sound judgment is very important. So, and that also helps with not making impulse decisions. So having a sound judgment, knowing where the information is coming from, analyzing that information, processing that information, and making sure that if it's correct, how you should respond, and if it's not correct, what your response should be. And that's why it's very important to have a sound judgment, and be aware of your surroundings. And we can, as an entrepreneur, we can always, go and impress a client by saying we're the best, we will give you the best service, but by the end of the day, your words will fall on deaf ears. It's what you deliver by the end of the day. So your actions speak louder than your words. So I usually am of the opinion, under promise, over deliver. So it's very important that if you're claiming to be the best, make sure you deliver the best also. Because if you don't, then you have already created a bad taste or a sour taste for the client, and they will never come back to you. So it's very, very important that you let your actions and your efforts speak for you. And by the end of the day, again, last but not least, lead by example. So it's easy to say, this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do, as a team, this is what we're going to do. But if you lead by example, people will follow you. So those are some of the traits I think I've personally have learned over the years. Others I have to learn. As a team, we bring all of those skills and trying to move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Fatimie. Okay, so we are coming to an end, but before that, I just have one question, and then we give you a chance to talk openly, because so far your all talks was directed by me. So now I want you to be to your own director, but just answering this final question. Once before, we did not have this era of entrepreneurship and startups in Afghanistan. There were no so many facilities. But now we can see that surrounding the ideas, we have also some examples of support there. So how do you think about the current environment for starting a business compared to before? And after that, you're free to just talk your mind.
Perfect. I think it's great to see that since last year, especially beginning of this year, there's a lot of hype about startups and entrepreneurship. I think it's very, very important that we create that awareness and help people understand that, if they have an idea, they have a platform, if that's Startup Grind, if that's Founder Institute, or that's another platform they can go and share their ideas, if that's Iptekar, that they will, get some sort of a safety net, or as they say, a incubator where they can run their ideas and see if this idea is going to become successful. I think it's very important, but we also have to keep in mind that not all ideas are going to succeed. Some of them are going to fail, some of them are going to take time to succeed, and that's why patience is required. No idea overnight is going to become successful. So patience, if you're confident about your idea, make sure you get the necessary skills, you make sure whatever safety nets or support initiatives that are available, you go through them, you learn from them, and then trial the idea. But don't be disheartened if the idea does not pick up suddenly, or if it's not a success, because out of 10 ideas, usually 2 ideas will become successful. So, and that's why dealing and how you handle failures is the key to entrepreneurship. It's not the successes, but the failures that determine your successes. Every failure is a step, gets you closer to a step closer to success. Every failure makes you learn a new lesson and gets you closer to your success. So don't be disheartened. Come up with ideas, but make sure you understand that an idea needs to go through a process, and and I think it's great that initiatives are there, such as Startup Grind and others, that can help you, with the idea. And again, the credit goes to you and to your team and others that are voluntarily putting your time together and organizing events such as this, so that we can all learn from it. So once again, a big thank you to you and your team.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, and now we have a question and answer session.
Before that, I would like to say a few things.
Why not?
Yes?
Sure.
I would like to share something, right? I mean, the things I want to share, and again, these are from some of it I've learned from my team. Some of it we've learned through doing business in Afghanistan. And I want to touch upon them, and again, for very few minutes. Try to always have a positive attitude and instill positive habits if you want to become a successful entrepreneur. Especially, as I said, it helps you to handle failures. It will help you overcome challenges when you have a positive attitude, behavior, or habits. Habits could be very different habits. Habits could be, playing sports, and getting your mind off, or going to the gym, or reading, or doing something. But instill positive habits, because it will help, because entrepreneurship is a full-time job. It's not 8 to 5, it's not 8 to 4, it's 24 hours. You will always be thinking what needs to be done next. And that requires a healthy mind. And a healthy mind requires that you have a positive attitude and habits. Two other things I want to touch, and I think it's very important, and I'm learning this, and I would like to share. As I said, there's a distinction between personal and professional failures. Personal, you have to handle them, you have to deal with them, and you will learn from them. But professionally, as a company, the failures you face, you need to overcome them as a team, because you're part of that team, and your team needs to learn from it. It's not just for you to learn, but for the whole team to learn and for them to grow. And for that, you need to have a learning organization. Why a learning organization? A learning organization means that a company where every single team member is learning from everything they do every day. And that's very, very important. When you have an organization where people are not learning, that is going to be the downfall of your organization. The moment your organization stops learning, it's going to have the downfall. So make sure you nurture an environment where people can speak their mind, where they can share ideas, and they can openly share their concerns in the team. So you can learn from them, because you learn from mistakes, you learn from failures. So if possible, nurture an environment of learning and continuously learn from each other. And I think that's very important in Afghanistan. And the final thing I want to say, and that is entrepreneurship. We're all entrepreneurs, and it doesn't matter if you have a full-time job or you're a businessman. Entrepreneurship is willing to take a risk. So if you have even a job and you're taking a risk, you're still an entrepreneur. But it could take time for you to become an entrepreneur on your own. But there's nothing wrong to having a full-time job. If you love what you're doing and you're learning, believe me, it will help you down the road. Those experiences will help you build a successful company. So there's nothing wrong to have a job if you love doing it. If you're a long-term plan, learn from those. And again, if you have a job where you're learning and you're fairly compensated, it's not a bad deal. You're learning and fairly getting compensated for it. But have a plan in your mind that down the road, these are the experiences that are going to become handy for me, and I'm going to learn from it. So again, entrepreneurship is great. The satisfaction that you get when you build something small and it starts to stand on its feet, it's great. But those experiences you will have from your career will come very, very handy when you establish your own thing. So again, there's not a perfect formula for entrepreneurship. It's just making sure that you are always nurturing an environment of a learning and trust. And the final thing from my side, empower your team, trust them, and invest in them. If you're here for the long term, if you want your company to be around 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you want to hand over this to your kids and the next generation, continue to invest. The initial investment is just the initial investment. Invest in your team. Empower them, trust them, delegate as much as you can, and invest in them as much as you can. And believe me, that return on investment is it's just priceless. So make sure that the initial investment is not just in capital and establishing, but you also invest in the team that comes around you. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. So Mr. Fatimie has an initiative in ACE, which is named, I think, don't let the food go to waste.
Don't let good food go to waste.
Go to waste. So we want to share some photos from that, and I want Mr. Fatimie to put some light on that initiative as well.
We operate in a community, and it's our responsibility to give back to the community as much as possible. Within ACE, my team continues to push me in the right direction, and again, the credit goes to them. So we started a small initiative called Don't Let Good Food Go to Waste. We work with wedding halls, and any excess food that is good food, that is not touched or is still fresh, we pick that food up, we put them in small boxes, and we go and distribute them wherever we can to less privileged members of our society. So right now it's on a pilot phases. As you can see pictures, we try to do as much as we can, that instead of that food going to waste, we pick that food and deliver it to the communities and the families that need it the most. And again, this is, I think, it's our responsibility to give back to community. And again, Didar Sahib and his team are the beacon for this, because as we have a consultancy firm, they have a consultancy firm, and they do the same. You know, this event today, they put their volunteer time to organize events on this, and this is giving back to the community.
Thank you.
So that's our small token back to the community. I hope we can do more. And again, and this comes from the concept of that we need to be socially responsible. Yes, we live in a business environment, more, you know, free market, but we have social responsibility. So I think as entrepreneurs, we need to be entrepreneurs for change, positive change, and change agents. And I hope we can, you know, build on this, and other partners can come in so that we can make this initiative bigger and bigger, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much. We want to thank you for this great work. Okay, so now we give this time for audience to ask questions. So anyone want to ask the first question? Yes, Mr. Anil Kasumi, as always, the very first hand. So
I hope easy questions.
I had started once before when there were lots of aid money in market, but did not succeed. Startup grind makes me to think of starting once again, but I am afraid that how will I succeed while the aid money in market has already decreased?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a very valid question and a very important question. There are two things. First of all, the Afghan economy has changed, and I think it's going through a stabilization process, and I think it's much needed. We were very heavily dependent on donor money. That donor money was going to dry up sooner or later. So to be hooked on that money, and then that wasn't, I would say it's not the real economy. It was an economy that was created around the transition phase, and I think now we're going through a stabilization process. Yes, the economy has taken a dip, but if you have a good idea, you still have over 30 million people living in Afghanistan. They're still buying, they're still living in this country, they're still going outside, they're still interested in quality products, they're still interested in quality services. So if you have a good idea, and you believe that you will have customers and you can sell that to customers, you should not be worried about it. And in regards to the Afghanistan and where we're going, I'm hopeful that the bad days are behind us, inshallah. I think it's not going to be an easy ride ahead, but I think we're moving towards hopefully stability, more relative security, and that's why taking the risk now, the return is going to be a lot higher in the near future. Because you're taking the risk now, when people are reluctant to take the risk. So if you're willing to take the risk and you have a good idea, then I think the return on that idea or investment is going to be higher, and I'm hopeful that inshallah you will not be disappointed. So if you have a good idea and if you can and you can deliver it and you have customers, I think it's the right time to make that investment. There's still a market, but make sure your target is the Afghan population, because that's by the end of the day market. That's the market, and you need to find which segment of market. I leave that for the marketing experts to segment the markets and which market. But make sure whatever business ideas you have, it's tailored towards the Afghan population. If it's in cities or outside cities, because by the end of the day, they're your customers. So if you have a good idea and if you think you'll be able to sell it or provide that service, I say go for it, inshallah.
I have two questions. First, is entrepreneurship just for making money or not? Second, how the idea of your company AISA came?
First question, entrepreneurship again, some of you might not agree. From my perspective, it's not about money. There are other ways that you can make money. Entrepreneurship is about, it's your passion. It's what you would love to establish and create. And if that's money, then money cannot be passion because you're driven by other means than financial means. So I think entrepreneurship, and especially as I mentioned before, in the context of Afghanistan, more social entrepreneurship is needed because the community around you needs also your help. So if you're going to become successful from this community, you need to return back to the community. So if you can establish an idea that is a win-win when you're building something of your own idea and you're passionate about, and at the same time the community is also is getting a benefit from it, I think that will be the ultimate entrepreneurship for Afghanistan. So again, I'm not preaching social capitalism or anything, but in the context of Afghanistan, I think social entrepreneurship is what is needed right now. So to have a community component that, while you are moving forward, you take a group of people and your fellow citizens with you and you move forward. So I say social entrepreneurship that is for positive change is what is needed in Afghanistan today. And the second question was how AISA came along. AISA came along, I did not get a lot of chance to talk about AISA. I hope if you're interested in AISA, you'll go on our website. AISA is a consultancy firm, a management consultancy firm. Our core competency remains training, strategic management advisory, and human resource services. The idea came in 2011, beginning of 2012. There was a lot of trainings taking place in Afghanistan. Everybody was doing training. Donors were giving money to organizations and companies to conduct trainings. And trainings for the sake of trainings. And the impact of it and the outcomes were to a certain extent questionable. So we saw an opportunity that if we can provide quality trainings and at a cost efficient and with Afghan trainers, because mainly those trainers came from Afghanistan or people were sent outside Afghanistan to go to this training. So that's when the idea came in, and we took a basement and turned it to a small training room and started operations. At that time, the idea was just to establish a training firm, but with time, alhamdulillah, it grew to other services. But our first training, I remember, was for about 8-9 people. We got, after 6 months of banging the doors of different donors and different clients, we got a very small project. The amount is not even mentionable, but it was the first assignment. And it just built on from there, 1 contract and 2, and it went on, and then of course we expanded. And again, Khanagi is also, AISA, while it is a management consultancy firm, we also have small startups that we have invested into. So Khanagi, I don't know if you know, a bakery is a subsidiary of AISA. Aqsat, we have invested. So we're also investing or helping other startups to stand on its feet, and we're interested to create enterprises around the consultancy firm. But the idea started from the fact that we wanted to provide quality training in Afghanistan with Afghan trainers. And that's where it grew from. And alhamdulillah, as of today, we have trained over 6,000 people in Kabul and in other provinces.
What are the last 3 things you think of as an entrepreneur before going to bed every night?
That's a very good question. The last thing, well, last night when I was trying to go to bed, I couldn't, because I was trying to see what I was going to say today. So last night it was all about the Startup Grind event today. The last three things, to be very honest, that I go to bed is I'm very thankful that I'm surrounded by a group of people that deal with me on daily basis. Believe me, it's not easy to deal with me on daily basis. So I am very thankful to them. The second thing I usually think about is a better Afghanistan, looking at the perspective that one day the challenges we're facing today will not have the challenges, and usually end up thinking about that. And the third thing, I usually think about my family when I go to bed, and think about their, that hopefully they're getting the right environment that they need to grow, because our parents gave us the environment to grow. I hope we can instill some of those behaviors and qualities in our children. So from the top of my head, if maybe I had given more thought, I would have come up with another 3 answers. But from the top of my head, those are the 3 things I think about.
What makes you to insist on investing on your team? How did you experience this?
It's because when AISA and in EPAA, my leaders and my mentors invested in me. That's what they did. You know, I would have not been the person if they did not make that investment. They sent me on trainings. They gave me the environment to grow. I was a very, very young individual, fresh from university, but they created that environment, and I learned this, and that's why this credit goes to them. So I'm just returning that favor back, because they invested in me. They gave me that platform, and there were some amazing mentors work with. If I go, the list is long, but I hope they hear my voice. A big thank you to them. They were willing to make that investment in me. So the actual credit goes to them.
It is said that entrepreneurship is all about the entrepreneurial mindset. Can you please explain how to develop that type of mindset?
Very, very difficult questions. I think if you create more awareness of your surrounding, of what is needed, what the Afghan people need, I think since we're operating in Afghanistan, and any entrepreneurial idea has to solve a problem or provide an opportunity or provide a better service. So, that's entrepreneurial mindset. So for that, to have that sort of a mindset, you need to be aware of your surroundings as much as you can. Be aware what is missing, what is needed. If there's a service missing that you can provide better, more cost efficient, then you have an entrepreneurial mindset. But for that, awareness of your surrounding and active listening is very, very important. My humble advice, again, these are my advices, humble advices. I'm sure there are other great entrepreneurs sitting in the front and second rows and third rows. I think they can provide better advice. But for me, I think those 2 things are very important.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fatimie, for your time and for the great lessons that you shared with us toward building your great company, ACE. So we are happy to have you here, and I'm sure that in upcoming programs we will once again ask you to come here and share more and more the new experiences and now things. So before ending the session, I would like to thank some of important people and entities in this program who makes this possible. We would like to thank Salat for being the prime sponsor and being the reason that jointly we can work the financials of this event. And I would like to thank Safi Landmark for being always very kind in allowing us this beautiful venue. Also the Startup Grind volunteer team and everyone who came here. Thank you very much.